Hello and welcome back to the Omnia Performance Podcast. Tom here, Head of Performance Nutrition, and I'm surrounded by three behemoths of hybrid training. JB, Kieran and Craig, we are all in Edinburgh together at one time. So we could make something out of that, but we won't. We are going to do a quick fire, in inverted commas, quick fire Q&A. We've got 20 questions that have been submitted on Instagram, and we're going to try and rattle through them as quickly and effectively as we possibly can. I'm not going to do any more intros from anybody. Let's kick off. I'm going to ask the questions, and one of the three gentlemen around me, or if myself, will chime in with the answer. So let's go, gents. Stand by. Question number one. What are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to hybrid training?
I would say that it's like something exotic or excessively different, whereas I think actually for most people it is just good training. So I think maybe if you apply some sort of really lofty goal to it, it might seem a bit more exotic than it actually is, but really all you're doing is combining some strength training and some endurance training. Doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Agree? Disagree?
Agree. Strong agree.
Yeah.
Very good.
Tom?
Yeah, happy with that. JB's answer. I feel like maybe we should have had buzzers or something here, or like lights that we could like be like
quick fire.
Quick fire. Who wants to jump in first? Maybe we should have a little show of hands, gents. If you want to
feels
jump
a bit
in
naff raising your hand like it's got, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Right. Question number two then. How do I get stronger and fitter at the same time without one of the other holding the other back? It's a bit of a wordy question, but I hope we can pull it apart. Kieran, I'm looking at you and you're nodding.
By doing slightly less of each than you might imagine. I find this is normally step one. People try and combine a running program with a lifting program. It inevitably doesn't work because they either don't recover enough or they're not putting enough effort into either one of the two. If in an effective hybrid training program, you look at each element, it should look like there's not enough of each element really. You think, really? Is that all the running I'm doing? Is that all the strength I'm doing? And that way you can actually execute it properly. And then you're not going to bite off more than you can chew. And if you find that you can recover from it, then add more, and only then. And that is normally the first thing that I do with new people that come to us. It is slightly less of each so that you can push it harder.
I like that. Do you think, guys, there is a kind of social media comparison is the thief of joy, where if you are getting a hybrid athlete on your social media feed, they might have a very significant background in one of the, particularly like a bodybuilding background, a powerlifting background, so they're already starting this hybrid training journey with a decent amount of muscle mass, so they look great, but people think, oh, if I start hybrid training, I'm going to look that way and perform as well. Do you think? Any comments?
I think a lot of the big names, it's that way. Unfortunately, particularly with people that haven't actually really achieved that much in the strength side, that's very much how it, like, you just get massive, then you find out running's pretty enjoyable or very trendy at the moment, and you lose a bit of weight, find that you run better, and then call yourself a hybrid athlete. And unfortunately, that's a big part of the scene. There are still plenty of people out there doing it the other way, or developing both concurrently. I'd like to think we're pretty good examples of that at this table, in terms of we are actually proving that you can get fitter and stronger at the same time. But unfortunately, a lot of the industry has gone the other way, where it's simply, I'm absolutely wham, I've lost a little bit of weight, and now I'm mediocre at running and calling myself something I'm not.
Okay, class, very good, very good. I feel like I've touched a nerve there, Keith. Frothing at the mouth. I could chime in with this one, but I'm interested to get someone else's opinion. Question number three is, can I lose fat and build muscle at the same time?
I mean, I would say yes, but it's not optimal. That would be my take on it. Like, yeah, just because you can doesn't mean that you should necessarily. I feel like if you're closer towards the beginner end of a spectrum, it's a worthwhile pursuit. But if you're particularly like advanced to trainee, I feel like it's probably going to be a hell of a lot more difficult, and you might run into issues with fueling your sessions maybe as well. Yeah, what do we reckon?
I've seen recomp happen in hybrid training more. It's happened, me and Tom have spoken about this in one of my athletes. It was very clear in their data that they were losing fat and gaining muscle. It does happen, particularly with high output. I think that was the key we were seeing, wasn't it? Like, when people's output's very high, you do see recomp, perhaps more so than people might have previously imagined.
What's that called in the literature? Is it energy flux?
Energy flux.
Yeah.
So high energy flux it's crazy what it does, and it means obviously you can lose fat on very high calories then.
Yeah, the big kind of asterisk here is that what we've got to be aware of is that, not talking in terms of strength and endurance here, but in terms of losing fat and building muscle, they are often opposing goals and often require different kind of calorie and energy setups. So if someone wants to do both things at the same time, I would get them to identify, like, right, well, when you say lose fat, are we actually looking at a significant amount of fat mass that you want to lose here? Are you looking like 3 kilos and above, or do you just want to be a little bit leaner? If you want to build muscle, I always describe it as if you want to put an extension on your house, you need bricks, right? You're going to need a surplus of energy, you're going to need a surplus of calories. It's going to help you build muscle tissue, because that's a bloody long process, right? It takes very long time with a lot of consistent training, a lot of consistent nutrition and sleep to be able to build muscle tissue. Whereas, relatively speaking, you can lose fat quicker than you can build muscle. Psychologically, we know losing fat is not an easy thing to do, but physiologically it is easier than potentially building muscle. So often I say to people, maybe periodise your year a little bit, identify where are the opportunities for you to kind of, be in more of an energy deficit or be in more of an energy surplus, and pair that around your training goals from there. Anything else to add? Are we good?
No, that was good.
Very good. Question number 4. How do I manage fatigue when I'm lifting, running, and doing conditioning all in the same week? Sounds like triathlon. Craig?
Well, I guess following a well-structured program would be the way to avoid fatigue, because the reason you have fatigue is from the training. So I guess it's almost like you need to go back a step. It's like what's causing the fatigue, rather than, you're not looking to avoid fatigue necessarily, because fatigue is the outcome of the training that you're doing. So I think following a well-structured program and not doing too much, which I think is a hard thing to find, especially if you're, maybe people listening are maybe self-coached, they see what everyone else is doing on social media and they want to replicate that. And there's also this kind of thing that we see on social media where everyone's not, it's how much can you do, and it's, I'm doing this many things in this many days, and rest days are for losers, and this sort of stuff, which is actually the complete opposite of how you actually progress, right? It's like, it's not the amount of training you can do, it's the amount of training you can recover from. So I guess doing the adequate level of training to give the adequate level of fatigue that you can recover from to then progress is the roundabout answer to that question.
Yeah, very good. Anything else, gents?
Yeah, I would just say, when people often talk about managing fatigue, it's almost a consideration once the horse is bolted. Kind of feel like Craig said, like, actually having a well-structured program in the first place is the best thing you can do to manage fatigue. It's nothing to do with like putting your like compression boots on or like ice baths or whatever. It's literally about making sure your program's decent in the first place.
100%.
Nice.
Yeah, and you're potentially not recovering well, so focusing on sleep. I feel like I bang on about all the time, but it's because it's true.
Spot on. Yeah, very good.
It's not about the amount of training you can do, it's about the amount of training you can recover from. That's something I harp on about all the time. It's the chances are you're under-recovered, not overtrained, and that's where your fatigue is coming from.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. Question number 5. I'm going to answer it because it's nutrition-based, but then I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts. What should I eat if I'm training at 6 a.m? Not to sound like the typical performance nutritionist, but the answer is it depends. It will depend on the session. What are you doing? Are you running, swimming, cycling, hyroxing, going for a walk, whatever it is? So the intensity of the session will determine what you need to fuel with. If you're getting up to train at 6 a.m, look, I don't want you to be getting up at 4 a.m and slamming back a full meal. We just want some easy to digest, easy to absorb carbohydrate. How much you have, again, based on the duration of exercise, intensity, etc. But it's going to be somewhere between kind of 20 to 40, maybe even 60 grams of carbohydrate before that session. Could be a liquid carb drink, could be an energy gel, could be a banana, could be a Rice Krispie Squares, could be some squashies. Trial and error sometimes here is needed to find what sits well for you. The more intense the session or the more longer the session is, the more carbohydrate we might want to get in during that session, or even actually consume during the first part of the session as well. Gents, 6 a.m, ever on your radar, early morning sessions? Any go-tos, any best practices when it comes to early morning training and nutrition?
Carb drink or Rice Krispie Squares normally.
Very good.
Or banana.
Exactly the same for me. I get on very well with liquid carbs, and I find, particularly for early morning lifting, it's very rare that I would take intra-workout carbs if it was just an afternoon lift. You don't need them. But I find, even if it's just psychological, I do feel significantly better if I've sunk some liquid carbs throughout that session. If it's early, it does make a difference for me anyway.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, it's the easier it is to consume, the easier it is to digest usually. So if you're drinking carbs or gels, that's going to digest quicker in your stomach, rather than eating something like a thick, like OT carb bar, even something like that, or like eating real food, even though that's what you should be doing most of the time if you're getting up early, which, 6 a.m. is early for most people. Getting up early, assuming you're wanting to get up as close to that session as possible, you're just going to want something quick, easy to digest. You're not going to want to have, especially when I'm thinking more about swim, bike and run, I think it's maybe slightly different for lifting. If you were lifting at that time, it would be slightly different, but especially if there's any intensity in that session, you're just going to want something simple, easy.
Perfect.
So yeah, liquids is where I would go mostly.
Yeah, I like that. Very good. Very good.
Just real quick on that. Sorry, I know we said we're going to quick fire, but this is as an extension. So, Tom, if someone is training early at 6 a.m. and they're asking what to eat, how much of a consideration should what they had for dinner be? Do you kind of see where I'm getting at here?
Yeah, not always also just so much what they've had for dinner, what they've had the previous day in terms of, going to bed with adequate muscle glycogen. The key thing is that liver glycogen drops overnight by up to 50%. And you can still perform well when training fasted or training with low carbohydrate availability. But I just generally do find the feedback we always get from athletes is once they experience training fueled, they do perform a little bit better. Yeah. I also think as well, if someone is a swim, bike, run triathlete, having carbohydrates during or even before a session, you're actually training your gut as well. So you're not just saving it for that long or bike ride at the weekend. Like there's almost a bonus element to having carbohydrates close to, or as Kieran said, even sipping on some during your session as well. Right, question number 6. I feel flat. Does this mean the program isn't working? Who wants this one?
For me, it depends on the marker I always use is, are they missing targets? Very often, if you're still hitting every aim, you're still hitting, yes, you don't feel great doing it, but you haven't actually missed the lifts in particular. So like no failed lifts, no failed reps on intervals, etc. But you're just not feeling great doing it. It could just be a sign that it's taking time to adapt. If you're either missing targets, which is a big red flag for me, particularly if it's well programmed. If somebody is consistently missing lifts or they're consistently saying, oh, I just couldn't do today's run, that's a big red flag for me to dig into. And in particular, if it goes on for more than a handful of days, that's a red flag to dig into. I think ultimately it comes down to it depends. And what I say to people is that I don't ever want to make decisions off just one data point. I'd rather see the trend. If somebody says to me, oh, I felt really tired today, I missed my workout, I'm not just going to proactively throw in a deload because of one session. If you continue to feel flat for say 2-3 sessions, okay, now we've got a little bit of a trend, perhaps we make a decision based off that. Or if you are consistently missing targets in multiple workouts, then yes. But I don't think that question anyway, I don't think there is enough information there to make a definitive answer. It becomes a question of, okay, what is consistently happening, and do I actually want to act on that, or is it just the fact that you had a really bad night's sleep?
I think if I got asked that question, I would immediately go back with 5 questions to them, because you need more information. But it's difficult to answer. We're obviously trying to keep the questions applicable to everyone, but it's what's causing that flatness, and how are you and what do you mean by feeling flat, and also what else is going on in your life right now.
External
have you is something going on at work? There's all of these other factors that can potentially be contributing to that, but it also could just be part of the ebb and flow of following a training plan. Like, believe it or not, people don't feel amazing all the time. When you're pushing your body to kind of do extreme things, there is going to be periods where you just feel a bit crap. But as Kieran said, if you're hitting the targets, it might just be, oh, this is just a bad couple of days. But if you dig in more, it might be, oh yeah, actually I've just had a baby and I'm going for a promotion at work and all these other things. I'm not sleeping well. There's a building site next door that's keeping me up or waking me up in the morning, etc. So it's digging into that cause of that flatness, and it's potentially caused by the training, but also potentially not.
Yeah. Question number 7, I'm going to throw it straight back to you, Craig. It's actually something you've spoken about just then and previously, so it all links in. So very quickly, how do I know if I'm under recovering or just tired from training? Is there things you would look for or get the athlete to look at, like say wearable data, metrics in the gym, any tests you could do?
I think, as Kieran said, if you're not hitting targets, or if progress seems to be going backwards. So for example, a lot of the sessions I program will be progressions. And so if you were able to do a session one week and then you're failing at the progression, that's not normal, because the progression is obviously programmed in a way that you should, to go from A, can then go to B and C. So if someone isn't able to do that, then that's the first warning sign to then dig in deeper and say, kind of what's going on here.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Question number 8. I don't have enough time to train. Is it still worth training?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is something I like harp on about with my athletes all the time, is how to actually adapt their training sessions if they do indeed not have enough time.
I've got a very quick fire answer to this, and it is something is always better than nothing.
Yeah.
And it's something I say, the thing I hate the most, I'm sure everyone at this table can agree, is red sessions in Training Peaks.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's amber, it's fine. Amber, I mean,
yeah.
it's not, obviously I prefer green, which means fully completed session. Amber or orange, for those that don't use Training Peaks, as a partially completed session, and a red session is a missed session. So if people have red sessions, I always harp on at them. Something is better than nothing. Just go to the pool and swim 100 meters. The chances are you'll do more. Obviously, if you're super short on time, that's not the most efficient use of your time to go to the pool and swim 100 meters. But you get the point. That is just, I'd like to see people do I was too tired today to do my session. It's like, okay, but I'd like to see you go out and do 5 minutes, and then say you're too tired, rather than, and just always have this like something better than something other than nothing kind of mindset, rather than an all or nothing mindset of like, I can't complete the full hour and a half. Like, I've got a 90 minute run planned. I've only got 89 minutes until my work call, so I'm not going to go for my run. You can see the flaw in that logic, and then, extrapolate that out to then just, try and get more yellows and oranges in Training Peaks.
So then question 9, JB, coming back to you, is if that person maybe misses that session, they got red in Training Peaks, have I screwed up the week?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think people view, like, to your point, Craig, people are very all or nothing. They view these things as very binary. So it's either like, right, I need to have 100% adherence, which is no fucking point. It's like, no, not quite. Like, there is absolutely still merit in, completing the week, but not quite to 100% adherence, if that's just the way that your hand's been dealt that week. It's not at all a case of screwing up the whole week. Definitely not.
I'd say actually, like, not many people do complete an entire week as planned. There's always something that's going to come up, whether it's to do with like physically, if you're a bit too fatigued to complete sessions, or time wise, or other commitments, or I went to the pool and there was a class on, and that's a typical one. So it's very rare actually that someone is chaining together week and week and week of 100% adherence to the plan. So don't think that you need to be any different to that.
Yeah, very good. Right, boys, question number 10. Oh, Kieran, here we go. My legs are sore. Should I not train?
Okay, starting point for me for this is similar to what Craig said, in that I'd always rather someone see the session, or like start the session. Particularly, I often program primers, so often it's a good chance to just see how things go. So I see this a lot where somebody says, look, my legs were battered, but you know what, actually I had a good session. Like, particularly after a solid warm-up, very often that particularly in the legs, I don't know what it is, there's just something about the legs. If you've got very, very heavy legs from perhaps a hard bike, hard run, you go into the gym, just sit on the bike for 5-10 minutes longer than usual, just warm up that slight bit more, or say it's running intervals, you step out the door, your legs are immediately sore. If you had a 10-15 minute program or warm-up programmed, just try 15, try 20 minutes, just loosen off the legs, try the first interval, treat it as a primer. So say you've got 10 by 400 planned, just go into it knowing, you know what, I'm going to take those first 2 as a pseudo warm-up. I'm going to ease into the efforts, see how it feels. If the first one feels okay, then maybe I'll try the second. If they don't, I'll call it a day, I'll keep it easy. And at least then you've done something, and you've had this actual real try at the session, and you now have an informed opinion. Okay, you know what? Yes, I really am too tired to do this workout, and I can make this informed decision that, you know what, it's probably better for me to rest. I see so often, and it's the people who are obsessed with their wearables. I slept for 15 minutes less than usual last night, or my HRV is slightly elevated, or my legs are a bit sore. Particularly in a hybrid program, you are going to have to train through DOMs. It is just a fact of life, or particularly for triathlon, where you've got multiple disciplines and then we're incorporating strength and conditioning. You are going to have to train through DOMs, and to believe anything otherwise is nonsense. And if you don't get used to this idea of training on sore legs or training on sore muscles, and you can't differentiate between I am cripplingly tired and I need to listen to my body and have a rest day versus I have DOMs and I need to learn how to train through them, then quite frankly, you probably won't get very far. And you have to push through it at some point to learn how.
I think most people would be amazed by, as you said, like after 15 minutes, how different you can feel in the legs, especially with that kind of heaviness of if you've just been doing heavy squats or a hard bike session or a hard run session or just high volume of any of those things. It's, your legs are sore because it's recovering from that training, but once you warm them back up, they can get going again. And if you're still feeling terrible at the end of that warm up, then that's actually probably the warning sign. The warning sign isn't, I've sat at my desk all day today and my legs are sore. It's like, okay, but you've done less than 500 steps. There's zero blood flow in those legs. So yeah, make the decision after the warm up as a minimum, I would say.
Very good.
I mean, one other thing to add to that, it's a bit of a vicious cycle. So let's say, for example, you are sore and you skip a session of some description, whatever it is, whether it's strength or endurance or whatever, that then might mean that you miss it for that week, and then it takes effectively a full 2 weeks before you go back to that next session again. And we know that a huge part of what causes DOMS is like novelty. Yeah. So if you haven't trained in that style for 2 weeks and you go back to it a fortnight later, guess what? You're probably going to be sore again, asking yourself the same question. Right, here we go, and you're just stuck in this loop. You're so much better just doing the thing, adjusting the session in accordance with how you feel. Happy days.
Yeah, I think adjusting the session based on how you feel is fine, as long as you're doing it in a kind of informed way.
Yeah,
there's no problem with that. I actually enjoy when like athletes that I coach do that and
to regulate.
Yeah,
very good. We are at number 11, so we're over halfway. Okay, very good. Why am I training more but not getting leaner? I'll go, and then if anyone wants to chip in, then far away. It depends on someone's goal, right? If you're actively trying to get leaner, then are you doing the right things? Are you putting yourself in a consistent, it's a key word there, energy deficit over time? The answer there is probably if you think you are, but the number isn't shifting on the scale, then you're probably not. And if I have to strap a GoPro to your head to find out, then that's probably going to show us if you are either overestimating energy expenditure from training, whether you are underestimating the amount of calories you are consuming, if you're not tracking it in any way, if you're just winging it with your nutrition. If you just think by training more you're going to get leaner, that doesn't always happen. We know certain exercises can drive up hunger if you're quite unstructured with your nutrition, etc. But equally, you might not be getting visually leaner, but actually your body composition might be changing. You might be carrying a little bit more inflammation from training, from stress, more water weight from more carbohydrates, etc. So actually, yes, you might be looking in the mirror, but also don't be afraid to go maybe get a body composition scan done, see if your local gym's got like an in-body or a bioelectrical impedance scan, that you can actually get some data on this. Rather than just guessing, let's test a little bit. Let's look at total mass, fat mass, lean mass, etc., and actually track that progress over time. But more often than not, it's consistency, it's being patient, and also, like I say, make sure you're doing the things with your nutrition that will actually help move the needle when it comes to changing body composition. Anything to add?
No, I like it. I think people often lack objectivity with it. They look in the mirror and that's their measure of whether they're getting leaner or not, but that is distinctly lacking in objectivity.
Yeah.
I think if you have like your even body weight, like look at the
tracking
scales,
trend. Yeah.
Just look at a trend. If you don't want to spend the money on getting some sort of body composition measurement, it's like an in-body or whatever, or a DEXA, I think that could be a good shout.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Number 12, how do I fuel longer training sessions? I'm going to answer this really, really simply. Once you tick over 60 minutes, I would recommend you find a gel, a chew, a bar, a drink that is approximately 30 grams of carbohydrate, and you have one serving of that every 30 minutes. So, for example, if you're doing a 90-minute run, you might have something at 30, 60, maybe closer to 90 minutes as well. We don't need to go any more complex than that unless you are doing longer, bigger training sessions, training for something much more arduous down the line. For anybody who's doing that kind of 1 to 2 hours of training, 30 grams every 30 minutes will do you really well.
One other tip to add there that I find is not to completely neglect the sessions under 60 minutes, and that's not to say that you need to fuel them, but at least I call it an emergency gel. Like and I'm not great at doing it, I do forget quite a lot, but it's a great thing to do, is just carry a gel that you're not planning to use, but because you just might, and because some days you just feel different to others, and you might inadvertently be underfueled just due to having a busy day, and you've actually not eaten as much as you usually do, or as much as you thought you did, or like I've got another emergency gel in my swim bag, for example. It's like I don't usually fuel intra swim, but there's been times where I'm in the pool and I'm like, I'm bonking hard and I need something, and just having that gel there and not. It's the classic, your mum tells you to, when you're going out the door, take your coat, you never know, you might need it, but if you've got it, it's like having that emergency gel with you that you're not going to use on those sub 60-minute sessions, and then I would always advise people.
Yeah, there's always a benefit from just even just mouth rinsing as well. You see it in sport a lot where guys will take a sip of carbohydrate, rinse it around their mouth, because there are receptors in your mouth. You will absorb some carbohydrate and even that placebo effect, and they'll spit it out. Now, obviously, don't get in trouble in your gym or your running track by spitting out fluid, because Tom told you to do so. But like Kieran said earlier about even sipping on some carbs during a strength session, whether it's placebo, whether it does help physiologically, there can be a benefit. Yeah, you're right, Craig. Good shout. Number 13, Kieran, I'm new to hybrid training. Do I need to focus on one thing first?
I personally prefer not, because what I don't like to see, and this is where so much of the industry gets this wrong, and particularly because, as we mentioned, so many people in the industry are doing this. They've started in one and then they pick up the other, is that it just leads these massive swings where you lose capacity in one. So let's say you're a lifter, you sign up for a race because you've never done one before, you swing far too much in the opposite direction. You either have a very hard time hanging onto your strength and muscle, or you get very, very sore when you go back to it. You've lost so much capacity and strength, vice versa, the other way around. If you're new, you have this very unique position where you can just do a little bit of both. You can make progress in both at the same time, and then you're not having these wild swings in ability. You're not sort of feeling like you're missing out on anything when you're training for one or the other if you do it that way. For me in particular, if I was to do a massive strength phase right now, I would feel very much like I'm missing out on my strength or my running or my cycling, and vice versa. If I went all in on cycling right now, I know I'd quit after 6 months, because I'd be looking in the mirror or I'd be looking in the gym and being like, God, I can't shift the weights I used to. So it's very, very doable to keep both at the same time, regardless of what people will tell you. There are so many people out there who are new to this or don't understand the science because they've done a few high roxes or something, and they think that you have to focus on one or the other, and it is simply not true. You absolutely can make concurrent strength and endurance gains at the same time. We've got the literature to back it up. We've got the evidence at this table to back it up, and we've got the evidence in our athletes to back it up. It very, very much can happen, and should happen when programmed well.
Very good. Question 14, JB, if I run more, will I lose muscle?
I'd say no, you don't have to. I think like one really important thing to remember off the bat is that legitimately losing like contractile tissue is actually really hard. Like you have to really cock things up, I think.
I actually have tried to lose muscle in the past,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
just almost impossible, especially
It's tough.
because I had the muscle for a long time. I think like muscle maturity, like if you've had muscle for a long period of time, it's actually very, this
Or
kind
like to stick around.
this cardio kills your gains thing. Like I was trying to be competitive at age group Ironman, and I'm heavy for that, and I was trying to lose muscle, and I just got, for me, unbelievably lean. But just I would do these body measurements, and like my arms and quads were just staying the same size, and I was like, I don't
Loyal
need
gains, mate.
I know I'm not. It's obviously like a unique problem to have. I know a lot of people is they're trying to build the muscle, but for me in that specific set of circumstance, I was trying to take it extreme in the other direction, and it is actually very hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'd say like to add to that, it might be helpful to look at it in reverse. So, like, what would you actually need to do to lose muscle? And then let's do the opposite. So, don't eat adequate protein, don't lift heavy in the gym, and do so much endurance training that you get such a degree of fatigue that you can't do the strength stuff. So I think that's more likely to be the cause of the muscle loss if someone is going to have it. It's that they push their endurance training so high that they can't strength train effectively, rather than the endurance training actually being the thing that directly makes them lose the muscle. Do you fellas agree?
Yeah, I like that.
yeah,
It's
I
really
think
good.
yeah.
a key point to make is don't be afraid of doing endurance training if you think it's going to make your muscle disappear. It's just not the case. As long as you follow some basic principles and follow a decent plan, then there's no reason. Obviously, there's going to be some body composition changes depending on how extreme you're pushing your training in one direction or the other. But generally speaking, it's actually not as common as a lot of people would have you believe.
Yeah. Craig, question 15 coming at you. How close to a race should I start tapering?
So I believe the literature on this is kind of split, and there's two different camps. There's some people that say kind of 2 weeks, and then there's other people that will kind of through personal preference will maybe go only like a couple of days. And I think it depends. It basically personal preference. I will typically go for a 2 week taper, but that's not to say that you do nothing for 2 weeks. It's just you're tapering off from where you have been. And so if you've been training super high volume, potentially, some people we're seeing now training like 20, 30 hours a week. Some of these pros, especially, for them, a taper week is still 15, hours of training a week. So it's not, they're definitely not doing nothing, and they're keeping intensity high as well. So yeah, the kind of standard answer to that question is 2 weeks. And that first week, you'll still be doing a decent amount of training with a decent amount of intensity. And then that second week is where you're actually having a bit more of an easier week.
Very good.
Sorry, before we move on,
jump in.
I think one other thing I'd add there is that it depends on the modality, because particularly in ultras, for example, it's really not uncommon to have particularly for the longest distance ultras, it's not uncommon to have your longest long run to be 3 or 4 weeks out from the race, because obviously it's such a stressful period. Like your final long run in the block of, say, 100 miler, that is still probably going to be an ultra marathon for most people. You're probably going to be touching 50 odd miles. And I think it's important to respect that is essentially a mini ultra marathon that you're recovering from in prep for your bigger one.
Yeah.
So very often, depends very much on the modality. If you're confused, obviously get in touch with us. But for ultras in particular, that process can look very different.
Very
good. And I guess the point there is that it's not your biggest individual sessions, which are going to be the biggest driver of fatigue, they're not necessarily going to come on your biggest week.
Yes.
Right? So there's like kind of two different things at play there. But typically your biggest week is going to be 3 weeks out from your race. So you're finishing your biggest week, and then you have 2 full weeks until race day, which is obviously typically on a weekend. But yeah.
Very good. JB, if one of your athletes said to you, I'm really stressed with work and family, should I still train?
Yeah, I think so. I think like we said earlier, auto-regulate your sessions. Like, irrespective of whether you're underfueled, underslept, stressed, whatever other kind of negative stress is being thrown at you, exercise and training still has a benefit. It just might need to be adjusted in terms of like the dose, the modality, what's appropriate to you as an individual at that moment in time, I would say. So I guess like if you are stressed, remember that your body still views all of this stuff that we're throwing at it as stress. So you may need to back off on intensity a little bit, back off on the volume a little bit, but certainly, again, to Craig's point, doing something is always better than nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say there, if you're in a situation where you're maybe stressed or angry or someone's pissed you off at work or whatever it is, it might feel right to go out and do like a really hard run when actually that is maybe not the right, whereas going and doing an easy run is like you're going to get the endorphins and everything from running, but
bit of headspace as well.
Yeah, and it's not creating that like excessive stress. So I would say
I talk a lot about a stress cup, and we all will be putting things in that cup. It might be training, work, families, relationship, and at some point that cup is going to overflow. And you're right, it might not be the work stress, but if you add a load of training stress to that cup and that causes it to overflow, then we're in trouble. Fatigue and other things that we've mentioned about. So yeah, it's finding that sweet spot of doing something that actually you feel better from doing it, rather than feeling completely beaten up or shagged, basically.
I think there's one other point I think we can make here, and that particularly if it's work related and we know it's going to be prolonged, like I'm a good example, obviously, having recently my dissertation fell at a similar time to a very stressful life period with moves and things like that. If you know it's going to be prolonged, you can proactively reduce your training volume, so that one of the things that I hate seeing, and we've mentioned it kind of here, is like if you aspirationally think you can complete 10 sessions a week and you're trying to do that alongside a very, very stressful week, I would much rather see somebody say, right, realistically, I know I can make myself do 4 sessions a week. And so I will design 4 sessions that give me a little bit of everything I need. And I would much rather see 4 green sessions in Training Peaks, or 4 or 5, whatever it is you can realistically commit to, than 10 programmed and you only get 3 or 4 of them done. And then you're actually totally missing the stimulus of the other ones.
Yeah.
And that's what I did so previously, before I was this busy period, I was training like 15 hours a week. We cut it right down to like 5 or 6 hours a week and just focused on nailing those. And it went so far I've come out the other end of this. Yes, I'm a little bit less fit, but I was consistent, had the headspace of training, and it really, really helped.
Yeah, I like that. That's good, mate. Really, really good. Knowing when to push and knowing when to pull. I think is really, really key here.
100%.
Question number 17. Do I really need protein shakes, or is real food enough? Look, ideally, food first approach is fantastic, but I'm not food only. And I actually see protein shakes as food. I don't see them as a supplement. Where, for me, protein shakes can be really, really useful is to increase the protein content of maybe an existing meal that is lacking in protein. Often around breakfast, I find unless you're an athlete who's got time or is organised, often breakfast is a little bit of an afterthought. So using protein shakes to make a smoothie with, to add to oats, etc., can really bolster the protein content of that meal. I think protein shakes can be really portable. You can buy single serving sachets, you can be organised and put it in a little Ziploc bag and bring it on holiday with you, etc. So again, it can bump the protein content up of, say, an afternoon snack, or it can be a really nice pairing with like a piece of fruit or a liquid carbohydrate option as like a post-workout kind of tie over if there's going to be a gap between a meal. So I think protein shakes are really versatile, relatively kind of cheap cost for what you get, and then also you can get really good kind of ready to drink options off the supermarket shelf if you're traveling and things like that. Guys, protein shakes, use them, recommend them, don't use them, thoughts?
Yeah, I think just like you, like try and go food first, as you say, not food only if they're really needed. To like, say someone's like a vegetarian and might find whole food sources like difficult to get in a meaningful amount to boost their protein. Protein shakes might be great.
Yep.
Convenience factor, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, some people enjoy them. Like some people like, if you mix it with milk or put it in like a Ninja Creamy, make an ice cream out of it. Like there's loads of different ways that you can use protein, bake with it, etc. So you can make like, good quality, sweeter treats that are still high in protein as well.
Yeah, agreed.
I've got a few to go. Let's keep going. 18. If the coaches wanted to shift their priorities from triathlon-based training to more of a strength plan, what would be the 3 key triathlon sessions they would maintain to hopefully maintain some aerobic fitness? Triathlon, Craig, I'm looking at you.
I guess and that coming to me then. 3 sessions in a week for triathlon is not much. So you're assuming this is going to be a relatively short period of time focusing on a different goal. So really, if you've got 3 sessions, you're going to have to do 1 swim, 1 bike, and 1 run. I would say that that would be the gold standard. I am the first person to sack off swimming if I don't have a triathlon goal, even as a triathlon coach, and taking a period away from swimming, because I feel like that one, you don't want to do that for a long period of time, but you can kind of sacrifice on the swimming a little bit, especially if you enjoy the biking and running, and those are going to be limited anyway. You're only having 3 sessions a week. So if someone said to me you can only train 3 times per week, I'm probably not going to want to do a swim every single week if that means I can only do 1 bike and 1 run. So I guess partially training for enjoyment there, and then but if you're being good and you wanted to follow 1 swim, 1 bike, 1 run, just keep them all kind of ticking. You'd probably want to add a little bit of intensity to each as well. Just if you were just doing them all easy, then you're going to probably lose quite a lot of top end. So adding a little bit of intensity, and you might want to change those 3 sessions, like from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, to kind of be ticking a lot of.
Yeah, so you're actually maybe looking at more of a 10 to 14 day training cycle there, aren't you? Rather than just
because it's just going to be almost impossible to tick all the boxes that you're going to need to tick in 3 sessions, basically. So then kind of you're like programming within your program sort of thing to adjust it as you go.
That 14-day micro cycle is exactly how, when people are very, very time limited, that's what I tend to go for. I tend to go for like a week A, week B structure, where week A you might prioritize, say, longer run, more intense bike. Other week you might go the opposite, and that works really well for at least, yes, it's not optimal, but at least then you're still getting something longer and something harder each week.
Very good.
It's funny on that, like it blows people's minds when they're like, oh, what, you can actually do training across the 10 to 14 day period instead of a 7. I think people get so fixated with this like arbitrary construct of like a 7-day week, but you can stretch it out over longer periods.
Your body couldn't care less.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Question 19, 2 to go. I struggle to stay consistent with my nutrition at the weekend. Guess this is on me, but feel free to chip in, guys. The big thing here to flag is, yes, Friday to Sunday is 42% of their week. And look, this could link up to the question earlier about like not getting leaner. Where I see a lot of people struggle with nutrition at the weekend is the lack of structure in their day means their nutrition becomes unstructured. So look at what helps you be consistent. If someone says, I can be consistent Monday to Thursday, well, why is that? What meals work for you? There's no reason why you can't repeat them at the weekend. So if you prep your breakfast during the week, or you have a go-to lunch option, like repeat them at the weekend. Try and, have really similar meals that work for you, give you the right amount of energy and calories and macros, etc., that then remove the guesswork that comes to where I see a lot of people's weekend nutrition. It becomes a little bit random, it becomes a little bit kind of unstructured, or let's go for lunch, let's grab a coffee, let's eat out, etc. And then before you know it, you're back round to Monday morning, let's say you've had kind of 3 days relaxed off your nutrition plan. So a lot of people talk about 80-20 with their nutrition in terms of like, well, across the week I'm going to be good 80% of the time and 20% more flexible. I would flip it to like a day, 80% structured, 20% if you want then to have a meal out, dinner out, if you want to go for brunch with your missus, etc. That's your 20%, that's your wriggle room. But actually maybe 2 meals in a day and 1 or 2 snacks a day, really stick to what works for you. And I think then when you zoom out across your 7-day period, you'll be more consistent overall, and that will help move the needle. Anything to chime in, gents?
I think with that, it's like you can't have it all, right? Like you can't enjoy your weekends and just eat whatever you want. I mean, it'd be lovely, but and also hit, if you have a very extreme body composition goal, or even just a basic nutrition goal, you can't have it all, and so there's going to have to be quote unquote sacrifice somewhere. And so I quite like that kind of 80-20 rule within a day, or kind of like if you know that you're going to be going and having a meal that you don't even want to know how many calories are in it, but it's going to be higher than the average. It's like, okay, you're going to have to make up for those calories somewhere else. So whether it's it's just this similar to like how you would spend your money. So if you've got a big holiday coming up, it's like those months leading up to the big holiday, you're probably not going to be having as much fun going and doing activities at the weekend, right? Because you're saving up for this big event. So I think just kind of flipping the mindset on a little bit of you can't have it all, unfortunately. It's just the truth.
Class. We're going to wrap up with question number 20 is actually going to come from me to all of you three, so you can all answer it individually. One piece of training advice, could be for someone new, could be for someone new to hybrid training, new to endurance training, anything from your experience of coach. We've got plenty of years of coaching experience sat on the table right now, but just one piece of advice or one piece of best practice or something you find yourself saying week after week to athletes. JB, let's hear it.
I would say you need to find your minimum effective dose to training as a priority, more so than finding out just the sheer amount that you can handle. So I think if you know what your minimum effective dose is, you've got some runway. So you start with a minimum, you can always add more. Whether it's psychological or not, it's very difficult to do too much and then remove. Much better option to kind of start with the least and build rather than crash and burn, I'd say.
Very good. Craig?
For me, I would say it's something that we talked about earlier, but something is better than nothing. And the kind of broader point there is that consistency is king. Like nothing is going to beat consistency. Everyone can be a hero for a week or a month or whatever, but if you can be consistent over a year or a decade, it's like crazy where you could be. And it depends what you're training for, but I'm assuming most people care at least a little bit about longevity. And so it's like, there's a saying, it's like most people underestimate what they can do in a week or they overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. And I think that's so true. It's just be consistent, and something is always better than nothing, and that's going to build your consistency. And then you're going to be amazed where you're going to be in even a couple of months of consistency. You can get a lot of progress.
Fantastic. Very good. And finally, Kieran.
I think the vast majority of people with a performance goal don't train hard enough, and they would benefit from stripping some volume back and being able to push it harder, somewhat related to the minimum effective dose point and then the consistency point. Look in a gym, there is so few people going to a true RPE 10 or a 9. People don't know what that means. You give the average beginner a weight, and there's been studies on this. If you tell somebody, right, use the weight that you would normally choose for 10 reps, take it to true failure. The average person is hitting 15 plus reps. So then they're training at RPE 5, which we know isn't hard enough. Go to a track, like a public track, when people are doing intervals and things like that, there are so few people putting in a true gut-busting effort in their intervals. Their easy and hard days are merging slightly, so they're never training quite hard enough, and they're probably doing too much of that. Strip it right back, push it hard, and you will be amazed at what that little bit of hard work executed consistently to combine the 2 points does for any performance goal. It is absolutely wild.
Superb. Well, I found this very useful and beneficial. I hope our listeners have as well. Please remember to check out all the links in the notes below in regards to training plans, one-to-one coaching with these 3 fantastic coaches, or even a custom plan as well. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in, and hopefully you will hear from us all very soon.